Hey guys, welcome very much to a new episode of Hello Crypto, the podcast and the YouTube interview where you get to see the insights of what is happening behind the curtain. And every week or every day, we try to speak to founders, VCs, CEOs, captains of industry that make this space legendary. And I'm honored and very happy to welcome Jacob, aka Insight, from the Chimpers community to give us a little bit more of an insight about what Chimpers is all about and what they're planning for the future. So, Jacob, warm welcome. Happy to have you. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, great to be here. I appreciate you having me on. It's yeah, all good over here in the UK. The space is a little hectic right now in the market and such, but Chimpers is, all smiles and we keep going. So great to get the chance to speak about the brand and yeah, a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Fascinating. It's cool that you mentioned that. Well, the time of recording is February, early February in 2026, and the markets have just taken like an incredible dump. So everybody's a little bit down. But the cool thing is, and I just mentioned that in the intro when we were chatting a little bit. I was a member of Chimpers. I don't know, maybe like a year or 2 year ago. I was exploring like other NFT collections, and I really liked the art. I think the simplicity and what you guys were doing with the dojo, but we can go into that. But just the other day, like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm gonna look back into Chimpers, and somebody spoke very passionate again about me about the project. Bought a couple, and I'm amazed by the market is tanking, everybody's crying, but the Chimpers community, it's just going on. It's like it's interesting to see how are you experiencing this yourself? Because it must be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not been a linear path, like you say, there's been like ebbs and flows, like all the way up until this point. We launched in 2022, in May, and that was the sort of peak of, the euphoric bull run market, just closing off that 2021 era. And we sort of caught the tail end of it. And then right after that, the bear market ensued and everything dumped and FTX happened, royalties disappeared. And
Celsius,
it
Three
was quite
Arrows Capital.
Yeah, everything, everything was seemingly going wrong. And I think that's at the point in time where I think everyone's sort of patience was tested and, that whole era, up until really, the past year or so, it was just a grind. But we've always sort of kept a steadfast approach to building. We haven't sort of succumbed to like metas and trends. We've always said with Chimpers that we want to grow it into this multimedia brand. And of course, along the way, we've experimented, we've, had fun, we've tried different things, we've failed with things. And the main sort of foundation though is the brand, and that's just continually grown and grown. And I think, as many brands have come and gone over the past few years who have had the luxury of the hype and the market sort of favoring them. We've been behind the scenes almost like the dark horse really, and just the proof is in the pudding. You make those small moves that compound, and over time they sort of that sort of comes to fruition. And I think the market really respects that, and everybody that has seen Chimpers grow over the past few years respects that. And I think we're at a point where we've really cemented ourselves in the space and also outside of it as well, growing the brand, being, one of the fastest growing social media Web3 born IPs in the space. And there's a lot to that. And like you said at the start, bringing people into the space is probably one of the most fundamental things that everyone should be thinking about. And it's something that we've excelled in terms of like establishing that foundation. And yeah, more than that, there's obviously the alignment piece. I think Chimpers has always been a very giving sort of, very giving brand in terms of the community, how we look after it, how we, approach community building. And obviously, as we've been growing the community, obviously the jigsaw puzzle pieces have started to come together in terms of we've built a really solid community. We've built, the formations of a brand, social media, and most recently we launched Chimpster, our token, and the alignment piece of that with the community, I think, has been really important in terms of, this was a token that was launched fairly, no allocation, no VCs. The team had to fairly market buy it alongside the community from day one. And the way that it works is that, we have committed to buybacks. The token actually supports the NFTs through volumes, whereby as there's more volume, a sort of pool accrues, and when that pool hits 100%, it buys an NFT from the floor. So for the first time, there's the sort of NFTs are still a core part of the token, where, historically token NFTs have been completely separated, and there's been no linkage in between. So obviously that's been huge, and I think just in general, us, having that sort of ethos has been huge. Where a lot of brands, again, as I said, they've come and gone, and a lot of them haven't had that sort of approach to building. So yeah, sort of long-winded, quick TLDR, but yeah, like I said, it's definitely feeling like today, like things are coming together really nicely. And we're in a, a really strong position, so it's great. But of course, as you said at the start, under the hood, under the surface, it's not as smooth sailing as, one might expect. So yeah, just, we're grinding, and this is the way that we've always sort of been.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear, Jacob. And it's like just in like in this intro, you're already like touching on so many different things and the ecosystem that you guys build in a couple of years. It's pretty amazing, to be honest. And can you just, and I will try to share my screen so people can see it, but can you run us through like the leveling of the NFT collections? Because, and I will share my screen during this explanation. But if you just look at like the Chimpers Genesis, I think these things are gorgeous. The artwork is insane. But was this the OG Connect collection that you guys launched with?
Yeah, so it all stems back to Timpers, who's the artist, and he's my twin brother, funnily enough. He's a
Like
pixel
like like a
artist.
like a one agate. Like you're
Yeah,
identical. Cool. We work with
non-identical,
a couple
sorry.
of other twins in the space as well.
Okay, yeah,
We're
well,
all going
yeah,
daily.
maybe
So
it's
yeah.
twins are sort of drawn to Web3, maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Magic touch.
yeah, yeah. So it all started with him. Like, he was an artist, had a YouTube channel, came into the space via that. He had like a big community of 40,000 subscribers, taught them how to create pixel art on Photoshop, worked with lots of YouTubers and gamers and streamers, including the FaZe sort of organization, Tfue, Pokimane, lots of big streamers that he created for. And that was around 2021 when he first stumbled across NFTs
Hmm.
on, his timeline, mainly because he's in a circle of artists already. That's when also, things started to start heating up. And he, joined the space, started minting artworks on Foundation, on different marketplaces. Collectors started to, drawn to his work, and he quickly became, a respected creator early on. And at the same time, in parallel, he was joining lots of different communities, lots of NFT projects, including the Bored Apes that he was lucky enough to mint, and sort of centered his digital identity around that. And that was his community. That's what he fell in love with. Um, and from there, it led to sort of experimenting with pixel art. He'd been creating one of ones in his own art, but he wanted to, give back to the community. So he created this homage artwork that depicted bored apes in this pixel art anime inspired world. And for the first time, people was, seeing their NFTs, translated into art and minted on the blockchain. And it was really exciting. And it sparked the idea of a full series, this whole storytelling journey of the bored apes going on this quest for the diamond fleece. So
Yeah.
sort of leaning into, all these fun elements of what, Timpers loves, retro gaming, fantasy, sort of all of these fun storytelling things. And um, that journey led us to create the six-part artwork series with, an ebook story around it, all
Hmm.
sorts of fun gamification and rewards. And at the end of that series, the holders who embarked on that and collected all six artworks was airdropped this Diamond Fleece NFT. And it was this sort of glorious treasure that, all holders was able to get their hands on. And we built an experience where everybody who owned that Diamond Fleece NFT could actually burn it in this sort of experience page. And by burning it, you was able to redeem a one-of-one Genesis Chimpers. So as the sort of Bored Ape story closed, a new sort of door opened up and a new chapter unfolded. For Timpers, he always wanted to create his own character IP. Obviously, he'd made this derivative artwork series around the apes. He'd worked on the Noun style collection alongside Gremplin and Punk 4156, creating that whole sort of character collection with them too. So he always like was, really keen to create something of his own. And that's where Chimpers came in. And just funnily enough, sort of no sort of story, no deep sort of
Strategy behind it
yeah,
was
no,
more
no,
of a passion
yeah,
play.
it was. And funnily enough, the story behind it was that Timpers, his name rhymed with Chimpers, and
Yeah,
because he created, the derivative series around the apes, there was an affinity to like the apes, and
yeah.
Chimpers felt like the perfect character to create. So, yeah, the Genesis 100 was created by him and I. It was, you know, really inspired by sort of retro Japanese kawaii aesthetics. They all have their own backstory, and they underpin the Chimpers world. They're the heroes, the villains, the super sort of elements of the world, and they sort of predicated the main collection of the Chimpers 5,555. And you sort of see the Genesis. They all sort of are one of one, unique, and you see those elements of each Genesis sort of translate into the main collection as well. So yeah, that is sort of the centerpiece, really.
Yeah, I love that story. I also think that like if you just watch and you look at this collection, right, it the artwork is insane. I loved it. I told you in in the DM already. I need to get one of these. But of course I don't want to pay too much. But the artwork is insane. I love the fact that the story is there. And what I think that you see with Timbers is that that passion that came from Bored Apes, which was basically the first NFT collection that actually took off and reached mainstream media, the vibe, the culture, and what the community was all about, you feel that in some sense back into Chimpers. So I think that's one of the things that impresses me as well is that you are able to retain this sense of like community, collaboration, passion for the artwork, and just people checking in, right? If you look at the X channels and the groups, they're like buzzing all the time, and it doesn't really matter where on the planet you are, it seems to be like a global community.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we learned a lot like in the sort of 2021 era as we was developing that sort of artwork series. A lot of the collections were launching, and we was able to really hone down on like what makes a successful community, like how do we build community, and was able to experiment during the artwork series, with a very small subset of collectors, but allowed us to see what was really interesting. And did have that luxury of seeing what came before us, and launching in 2022, we was able to apply a lot of those learnings to it. And for us, we've always been very grassroots, very sort of family centric. As I said, we're family run sort of company, and project. So that sort of has, weaved its way into all of things Chimpers. And I think that coming down from the top has really sort of helped establish the sort of community that we wanted to build. And, we've never sort of been a team that is away from the community, feels sort of, yeah, sort of away from the sort of community vibe that's the day to day, in the trenches, as you said, in the DMs, the group chats. We're accessible
Pretty
everywhere. And I
amazing.
don't think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not very orthodox, I suppose, but it's just something that we've always, yeah, enjoyed, I
Yeah.
guess.
100%. And one of the things, and I see it behind you, there is like this plushie, right? There is like this origin selection that you guys minted out, or but I'm not sure. You need to explain how that worked. But I see them across my timeline everywhere, like physicals of chimpers in people's houses, unboxing videos. I see it all. Tell us a little bit more about what that was and how that happened.
Yeah, definitely. So prior to all of that, Chimpers, when we launched, we created this IP, and we really could see it, forming into a multimedia IP, meaning that, it could expand across gaming, collectibles,
Mm.
arts, media, etc. And
Playing cards.
um, exactly, like collectible cards too. So it was all about, like, in the first early years, establishing, well, what does the community like, and really like establishing our identity. And we had this Web3 community which was very strong and was passionate about the art and the story, but we didn't have a mass appeal mascot or a brand message that could expand beyond our little bubble, really, that what we've created. And there's obviously a lot of deep lore and story to what we've done, but it's, you have to find ways to express it so that anybody can fall in love with the brand. So we came to social media in early 2023, set up our social channels, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and developed Chimpy, the brand mascot, who basically encapsulates everything around Chimpers, the
Mhm.
adventure, the sort of essence of Chimpers, which is we're on a mission to make you smile, and that sort of energy. And he's the sort of leader of that in terms of this cute, kawaii, expressive character, and is, joined by different friends, these sort of animals, which is like Octi,
I've
Mr. Quack.
I've seen a couple of these, and I was looking at the social media numbers, and guys, these numbers are off the chart. It's like insane the amount of followers and the amount of engagement you guys have been able to farm with this as well. But
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
amazing. Did that take you by surprise, or was that more like a confirmation on, hey, we have something good here?
Yeah, so it was a long process. Like, of course, like we delved into the sort of social media space. The
Hmm.
characters are everywhere, and it's where meeting the audience is where they're at, really, of today. They're scrolling, they're trying to form connections to characters that allow them escapism and just fun generally. They're on the way to work, they're scrolling. Chimpy is there to make them smile and brighten up the day. And we decided that Chimpers would embark on that. And over 2 years, from 2023 to now, we've just gradually built that fandom, built the audience through daily to weekly content pieces that has just been consistent and allowed us to
Yeah.
really form a great community. And it did take us by surprise initially, because when you get that first viral video that hits the algorithm and you start to see the followers grow, it's just really inspiring, of course.
Hmm.
But really, it's a machine, a content machine that allows us to expand beyond Web3, but
Hmm.
also allow us to, over this time, realize that Chimpers is a lifestyle character brand, but a next generation one. And that's allowing us to expand into collectibles. We're not just selling to our Web3 community, we're establishing a fandom where people want to collect Chimpers and fall in love with Chimpy. And that led us to plushies, our U2's one, which is the Master Chimpo one behind me. But then more recently, us actually signing with a licensing agency, delving into the sort of entertainment and licensing realm, being at trade shows on the ground in Vegas, New York Toy Fair, Comic-Con, having that on the ground footprint that allows us to really connect with the people that we want to rub shoulders with, the IPs and the brands that, we want to see Chimpers alongside. So alongside just the social media content, the actual product development, being on the ground with licensing and the networks, the relationships that we're building, it's just all started to form over time. It's not been a quick journey, but yeah, the blind boxes, as you mentioned, was like more recently our big product release. We signed with a company called 223. They're sort of a licensed manufacturer for softline goods and apparel and collectibles, and they're sort of a Web3 arm of their parent company, J Corp, and they're one of the biggest. They work with all the big brands like Disney and Marvel and UFC, and have big retail networks. So we signed with them at the Vegas Licensing Expo in 2024, and from there we've sort of just been developing products. And sort of plush keychain blind box
Yeah.
hero came into the picture because obviously that sort of aesthetic has come into the West through Asia, and it's really popular through Labubus. And you've seen it over the past few months. They've been huge.
Yeah.
And yeah, Chimpy, sort of the plush keychains came out just over the summer, and now they're shipping, so everybody's getting them. And it's great to see, because everybody's ripping them, posting them on a timeline, tapping their plush keychain with their phone to get the digital experience, collecting, digital cards and NFTs. So it's really a sort of, like I said, next gen experience, which is what we're really trying to achieve. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting.
And it's beautiful to see. I've been in a lot of different projects. We own a project ourselves with Hello Labs and Killer Whales, and before that we had a also an NFT collection called Doge Dash, which is still very much active. But we didn't build it out the way you guys did. And what I find amazing is that we're both founders, and as a founder, sometimes it's great, and sometimes S hits the fan, right? It's terrible because you're doing so many things. It's not always visible. It might be hard. It might be technically hard. It might be mentally hard. It might be financially hard. But what amazes me about what you guys are doing is that with all the things that you're doing, your day must be like wowed. And in the other collections that I was a part of, not as a founder, I always sense that in the founders. The thing is, the other day I was trying to buy a certain chimpy from a certain ex community member, which in the end didn't go through, unfortunately, but still looking to get it. I DM'd you and Joey, and both of you like responded, easily taking the time within like an hour or something like that. So that really amazes me. But because with the Hello Crypto podcast, we have a lot of founders, a lot of like whales, a lot of like influencers watching this. I think it's good to do a couple of things. So I'm gonna ask you three sink or swim questions, and they are like propositions. You can answer them sink or swim. Sink is like, I don't believe it. Swim
Yeah.
is like, I do believe it. And then we're gonna discuss them a little bit more. But I definitely also want to know a little bit more about your biggest struggle as a founder. So think about that. But I'm first gonna drop you three propositions. So
Okay.
are you ready for this?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Chimpers will be a top five NFT brand by floor and IP relevance within 300 days.
Yeah, I'd say
It's sink or
swim,
swim. It's sink or swim.
swim.
Cool. Okay, that's what we need. We need a little bit of like, here we go. Cool. Hey, in 3 years' time, NFT IP will outperform most traditional gaming IP in revenue and growth.
What was the timeline? Sorry.
3 years.
I'm gonna say sink on that one.
Hmm, interesting. Interesting. Okay, here we go. The next NFT super cycle will be driven by families and kids, not crypto natives.
Mm, what was the timeline on that one as well?
Next NFT super cycle.
Okay.
Maybe a year, 2 years.
Yeah, I want to say swim on that.
Yeah, yeah, I love that as well. Okay, and then the final one, Jacob, here we go. Owning an NFT will feel more like owning a franchise license than a digital asset within 5 years.
Swim. Yeah, I'd say
Yeah,
swim on that.
cool. Okay, here we are. Okay, thank you very much, Jacob, for that. Really cool. I do appreciate that. I do. Before we tap into like the last one, because I like that. I like that proposition. I like that sink or swim statement you made. But can you tell us a little bit more as a founder? Chimpers is now booming. It's growing. You guys are building on all the different elements of building that IP and that brand. But there must have been a time where it was hard, or you guys need to persevere. Can you share a little bit like one of these moments that you guys, maybe you and your brother were like, "Whoa, it's hard," or
Yeah, definitely. I think there's just been so many different times, like over the past few years, having to navigate the space where, sentiment and community sort of feeling is pushing towards one way and you're pulling against the other, our sort of meme coins and tokens, especially in sort of 2023, 24 era. And
yeah,
it's, having to navigate that is, you know, tough because, at that time, Chimpers floor price very low. We're on our sort of mission and path to grow the brand and, really build those foundations. And there's always yeah, the the feeling that the community can't value that or sort of resonate or understand it just because it's not come to fruition. But over the sort of past few years, it's small things have started to compound and it's become more and more easily translatable and easy to understand. So I think just the patience and just that test as well, like alongside just growing the brand, it's having to navigate the community and having their trust in you is really important, but it's not always easy. So obviously there's that, there's opportunities and times where we've worked with people and you know things didn't work out well, they rip you off and
Habits.
silly things
Mm.
where people go ghost. And I think early on that was particularly something that you have to navigate as well, being in the space, you have to trust people and that's not always easy. So I think you learn a lot as you sort of build in the space in that regard. um, and yeah, I think there's definitely been times where we've done things and we've launched a product or made a big sort of move and the community haven't always been on board with it. So it's
Mm.
having to figure out how to know, deal with those instances and, having people in the community as well who are very toxic or, have
It's hard.
it's such a different it's
Yeah.
a very, very unusual dynamic to have to deal with. And, you have to wear different hats. And for us, the way that we have dealt with that is just being very transparent. And, like I said, you can find us anywhere at any time. And, we more and more we're trying to translate that across. We have spaces, we're in Discord. If anybody ever has a query or something that they want to criticize, we're all open for it. And funnily enough, somebody who 2 or 3 years ago had been actively calling for us to launch, like a token or something like this in a group chat, and there was a big sort of riff and raff in the group chat, doom and gloom, and the team needs to do this and the team needs to do that. And we avoided that. We dealt with it in the chat, and we're very open to that. But looking back in hindsight, you have to be very careful not to give in to some of the sort of loud voices. And I think the way that we've dealt with that has paid dividends because if we had done that, we might have ended up like a project that is now, you're completely, fallen into the ether. And, we've been able to keep our ammo and sort of cards up our sleeve, in that sense, and just always taking the methodical, right steps. And, it's hard to do that. I can't say that we've been perfect as well, but I think just taking our own time has, allowed us to bide the sort of time and weather the storm and the elements of the space. And a lot of the people now are, like you say, the most passionate and caring and excited about the Chimpers sort of future. So yeah, I mean, there's
That's
so many
awesome.
different times that have, yeah,
Yeah.
we've had to deal with so many different things. It's hard to pinpoint certain ones, but
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
I recognize a lot of these things, so it's always hard, but it's like your own mentality, right? This is what we want to do. Okay, it might be a little bit terrible in the chat, but this is what we want to do. We believe in this, and let's get that going. Before
Yeah.
our time runs out, Jacob, is there anything you want to share with the Chimpus community that might not be like already known, or is there something you can give us that like would be like a good cliffhanger or a good teaser?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, God, there's so much going on right now. We've
We have like a minute left.
Oh, a minute left. Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
apologies. Okay. So stay tuned for the Loyalty Hub. We're building a new product that allows you to track your holdings, your sort of tokens, badges, your legacy, sort of loyalty to the Chimpers community when you've accrued points. That's going to be translated into legacy cards, and we'll be having reward seasons. Chimpster Treasury is, worth over $300,000 at this point through Chimpster that we've bought through NFTs, and we'll be building reward seasons in the upcoming sort of months, and yeah, rewarding the community as much as we can through lots of fun ways. Really emphasizing traits, collecting, all things NFTs and chimpers. So that's going to be really fun. Lots more products and collabs to come. So
A
yeah,
lot in the
lots of
works,
stuff
a
going
lot in
on.
the works. Okay. Well, our time is up. Thank you very much, Jacob. Appreciate it. And we're going to speak in the chats and looking forward to the next chapter with Chimpers. Thank you.
Thank you.